There are roughly 10 games that have made me who I am today. Some are titles I've not actually played, while others are ones that I've dedicated hours upon hours of my life towards. Some games stretch back to my first few memories, while others are from when I was an adult. Gaming has been a part of my life for well over a decade now, and some of these titles were even released in the year that I was born. Some games causing me to cry, others causing addiction, and some make me want to do nothing more than be lost in their gaming world for the rest of my life. Not because they are the best ever made, but because they left an impact on me. So grab a cup of tea and join me in discussing the 10 games that made me who I am. Some of my earliest gaming memories are of Pokemon, not the originals or the next few iterations, but of Black and White. To people who grew up with the first 4 generations, which I've technically experienced to a degree through my sister, a lot of people view them as the crowning jewels of Pokemon, and it's just downhill after that. I don't think Pokemon really started to go downhill, truly, until after Sun and Moon, but even then, Sword and Shield was actually pretty fun. Some of my earliest memories were of this game exactly, Pokemon Black and White. When I was in year 2 or 3 quite possibly in my first school, me and my friend would play this all the time. We had our DSs and would sit in the lounge trading our Pokemon to take down the Elite Four. I ended up doing something that is a sin, but when I was a kid, I didn't really know how it worked. And I ended up resetting my sister's save, thinking that obviously you could just access it because it was her DS, but back then it was all saved to the DS cards, or at least I believe it was. I just remember the case that I was trying to play it and then I had to reset her thing, so I put it into my DS and it didn't go down well, let's just say that. My true love for this franchise came both from watching the show at the same time while I was growing up and playing these games, but when Pokemon X and Y released, I think I had quite possibly some of my most enjoyable and favourite gaming memories of all time. I replayed X and Y many times, and I truly found myself loving this game, and it was the game that brought me and one of my friends far closer at the time. Roughly when I was 11, we found ourselves playing this game and just chatting for up to 18 hours straight on a Skype call. We loved playing this game dearly. We tried to get as many shinies as humanly possible and ended up finding so much love for the game itself, the Pokemon, and just the sheer abundance for the first time in a Pokemon game. And also, let's not forget that this was the first time that 3D was actually an option. For me, this is what Pokemon has always been about. It's a game franchise that you and your friends love, talk about, trade, and just have fun. I remember very fondly me and a friend also playing through this game yet again in 2018 because it's just that good. Then you also have around that time as well the blow up of Pokemon Go, which to this day is still some of my fondest experiences when it comes to just any form of gaming ever. Like, for anything that is obviously a meme now, going back to then when you would have to change your location to New Zealand to play it early, and then you were going down into your town to deal with whoever had the gym in your local area or just leveling up your Pokemon, and everyone was playing it, it was just quite possibly something else. When my final journey in the world of Pokemon for now took me was when I was 17. My boss loved playing Pokemon at the job I was in, and many others in the store did as well. We found ourselves getting really hyped for Sword and Shield. It was the first Switch Pokemon title, and it was absolutely great. It took over our workplace for weeks, and even at times for up to multiple months. Again, this is some of my fondest memories of the place that I used to work at, and it was absolutely great just to share this experience. And again, this is what Pokemon means to me. I love these games. They made a lot of what my childhood is, but what they represent is friendship. Something that allows a really easy way to become friends with others on a deep level as well, as you end up connecting over this shared love for something that you had during your childhood. It happened from the ages of 6 through to 18, and I couldn't be happier to have played these games when I did, and the bond that it created has left outstanding experiences on my mind. The childhood game that dominated the gaming space for years, if not an entire decade, and even then it still takes up a lot of kids' childhoods now, is Minecraft. I first played this when my friend told me about a particular YouTuber, a guy named Syndicate. He has a channel now called Life of Tom, but at the time he had a series that was called the Syndicate Project, and it was my first instance of loving this game. I remember my first world vividly. I dug a hole in the ground, had a trapped door and a little 3x2 little base that I just kept digging down and building further and further. The game was far darker at the time, or at least it did feel like that to me. One of the biggest experiences in that early stage of Minecraft was feeling so tiny in what was a vast world. Now when I play the game, I feel like an unstoppable force, whereas back then it took me days to build confidence to even leave the forest that I had spawned within. Over the following decade of its official release, this title would follow me throughout any gaming adventure I was on. When a new Call of Duty released, or even when Destiny took over my entire life, one of the things that I always jumped back into and my friends played together was Minecraft. So many 360 worlds that we loved, some that sit on my R2-D2 Xbox with nostalgia, but others being memories that teetered on friendship-ruining moments. I remember once being accused of stealing diamonds on a world that I had just been on, hardly ever even touched it. I think I had one experience and they started accusing me right away, which by the way, I didn't do, okay? I wasn't that guy. I hated stealing from people. I hated even like people who would cheat in any way in most games, so I disliked it. However, one of my friends believed it was me, and I remember coming back onto this world the next day, and my friend was a bit off. He was like, hey, I can't wait for you to get on the world, just be warned. And I was like, what's happened? It turned out the guy who thought I stole diamonds burned down my entire house and took everything I owned, and I was like, oh great, okay, I've never played this world again. And it's those sorts of moments that I always look back on as just really stupid, but just funny to remember. I loved playing this game growing up, and me and my friends have continuously gone back and played on different versions of different worlds over the years. One of the most recent examples of a great Minecraft world that I was a part of was in 2020, in the first lockdown. I remember vividly jumping onto this world. It only lasted a couple of weeks, as usual, but this was the first time in many years that brought me and multiple different friends from various different friend groups together to play, and it was an amazing time. The worst part, however, is that some people like to do everything as quickly as possible, and then it comes down to just wanting to build anything and hoping that, you have enough motivation to care about building all this stuff over time, and it can at times, make the world a little bit boring, and it leads to that end of the world. This game has allowed me to have some of the best conversations with many of my friends that I've ever had on a far deeper level than they would otherwise. It was also the first game that me and my girlfriend played together when we first started dating, so it does hold some impact there. Our original world is still saved within a realm, and we look back on it very fondly, wanting to experience that world yet again and just feel that feeling. This game has made me have massive creative visions, but in the end, it showed me one of my biggest flaws in who I am. And that flaw is having such a multitude of ideas, vast in scope, but they end up going nowhere, because I end up with an inability to complete any of them. This is something that even to this day I struggle with in my own life. It's not just in the gaming world of Minecraft, this is just something that's just a part of who I am. The Metal Gear Solid franchise is a set of games that have had a massive impact on me, both in my upbringing and now. The funny thing is, however, I've never actually properly played any of them, or at least not properly in the traditional sense. When I was a kid, my older brother and sister would play the original Metal Gear Solid games, even some of the original Metal Gear games as well. However, there are two games in particular that I remember them playing vividly: Sons of Liberty and Snake Eater. I would sit on the couch while I was playing on the PlayStation 2 and witness Snake go through the forests within Snake Eater, and at the same time you'd then see them playing Metal Gear 2 and seeing Raiden doing cartwheels naked. I have plenty of great memories of these games and the entire franchise. To this day, I've not actually played any of them properly. I have played the intro to Phantom Pain, however, when I did play it, I was like 13, 14 or something, and yeah, let's just say that intro is terrifying for a kid. But yeah, that just might be me. I'm terrified of most games, or at least I was when I was growing up, and it means that outside of that, the only other experiences I've had is doing some of those testing areas in Sons of Liberty. Overall though, what sticks with me is the love for the Metal Gear story, and we'll continue to watch too many hours worth of video essays about the Metal Gear Solid franchise. It's something that I just love. I've always been someone who's been far more into the story of games rather than the general gameplay mechanics, and I do want to give these games a proper go. I've always just struggled with the stealth genre, not because I necessarily suck at the games, I just lack the patience for a lot of it. When Snake Eater releases though, I intend to actually start playing through the titles properly. What this franchise has done for me is two things. The first is having a game franchise that is heavily connected to my upbringing and family experience. It's a game that will always be with me, and I will always feel like a 6-year-old watching my siblings play these games. The other big thing that it made me realize about myself and what I truly find valuable, both in gaming and general media, is storytelling. If that's music telling a great story throughout its song or album, or a game having an engaging, over-the-top narrative that you can enjoy without the requirement of having played them in the first place. The fact that I could easily hold a conversation with people who love this franchise without seeming as if I've never touched the games properly is a testament to how great this franchise is, and at least how much it means to me. In particular though, how much I love the story. If there was one game that has probably impacted my life the most, it has to be the game that I've had plenty of conversations with my friends about, references on the daily, and just thoughts about almost daily as well, and it would have to be Skyrim. When I first played this game, I was 9 and it was on the PlayStation 3, however the game would continuously crash upon opening it, so I gave up. It wasn't until my next birthday rolled around and I found myself being gifted with my very own console, which was the Xbox 360, and one of the games that was bought for me was Skyrim. I ended up falling in love with its world the more and more I aged, for reasons primarily related to how scared I was as a child with playing many games. When I first played, I roleplayed as a hunter or a blacksmith. One time I remember pretending to be a woodcutter just to try and save up all the money and end up paying off the room that I was staying in the Bannered Mare and eventually saving for a house. However, I ended up finding out that you couldn't buy a house with this money, so it caused me to have to finally take on Bleak Falls Barrow. At this point I had never ventured outside of Riverwood or the vast fields of Whiterun. Even looking back at it, I can tap into this sense of feeling as if those were my borders that I was playing within. That was the massive vast openness of this world, and even then I felt like I was tiny within this tiny little bit of land that made up the entirety of the game. I ended up building up the courage to truly play Skyrim in the way that it was intended, and the rest became history. Over the years following my 10th birthday, I played Skyrim more and more times than I can probably count. Many playthroughs that I've had where I've bordered on 100%ing all of the quests. I've probably done everything there is to do in Skyrim, could tell you about almost every single quest in the game, a character that I've built, every character within the world itself, or just the lore of the world and how the moons work and all this stuff that I just find interesting. Skyrim wasn't just a game that I played because I loved it. It was a game that I also went to because I wanted to get lost in a world that felt familiar and distant at the same time. What Skyrim did for me a lot of the time is it allowed me to have a home away from home, or even a home when I was at home and I just wanted to disconnect from everything going on. This is something that would be labeled as an emotional escape, and I connect to this idea massively. However, I would also say, generally speaking, I throw it within the realm of being a comfort game, hence why it was in the video dedicated towards comfort games. The stories this world will tell, its fantastical nature, the great, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between, allows us to feel like a heroic wanderer in a world that is both beautiful and haunting at the same time. What this game did for me is that it allowed me to be one with myself, think, and just explore. While this game is connected to me on an emotional level due to reasons I've mentioned, it's also the case that it's so familiar that it just allows me to wander and think through some thoughts, or just do some quest without really thinking about it. Truly, what this game does is it allows me to decompress and take in a few moments where I can just think properly. And that's something that very few gaming titles are able to do for me. The most prominent franchise that I've loved, however, belongs to Ubisoft, and that is Assassin's Creed. It's why when people hear me talking about many of the later games, they may think that I hate Assassin's Creed, or that I just care too much about some of the old games and I look over all their issues. But the reason why I act in this way with a lot of the games like Valhalla, Odyssey, Mirage for example, is that I have a genuine love for this franchise, what it meant to me, and the wonderful gaming experiences that I've had over the years. One of my top 3 games ever made is Assassin's Creed 2, and with that generally the Ezio collection. Like Skyrim, I got into this franchise around the same age. Shortly after getting a 360, my friend ended up bringing over a copy of AC2, and at the moment I played it, I ended up getting through the whole of Sequence 1 and I just fell in love with it. I got my own copy and played the next release the moment it came out. I've replayed most of these titles over the years at least once, with some being honestly a yearly tradition to play through. Many of the memories that I have when I was a kid come from this franchise. I remember waking up excited to play some more Assassin's Creed 3 before school and then walking in the snow. It was something that just connected me massively to this title because there was snow on the ground whilst I was walking there and you're just walking through snowy Boston. Me and my friends would discuss at length in the playground the lore around these games and why specific things had to happen in the way that they did. I would buy the books even though I hardly read them. I would watch video after school just to learn as much as I could because I genuinely loved this title and just franchise dearly. It's also a franchise that genuinely feels like it's got a great unique twist on the Shadow Organization War storyline that you'll see quite often in many other games, books, shows, whatever it might be. It took a very long time to be able to see the Templars as not just this big bad who simply wanted to control everything, but also as you get older you start to realize that the Templars aren't all that bad at times, and the assassins aren't exactly perfect either. What this franchise has taught me though is to love something dearly while not allowing it to steamroll you into oblivion. Assassin's Creed went from being something that I loved greatly to something that I struggle to bring myself to enjoy now. I loved going back and replaying many of the old games, but sitting and playing Valhalla, experiencing the questionable storytelling options within Mirage, and just watching gameplay and the entire pre-launch conversation around Shadows has made me want to check out entirely. This isn't the first game franchise to give me trust issues, however it's definitely the one that tore out my heart and stomped all over it. The game that really gave me trust issues, however, and built me into the person truly that I am today, is Destiny. I first played Destiny around 2 weeks after its launch. I wanted it as all my friends were playing it at the time, however I had to wait until the trip to Asda so that I could beg my mum to pick it up. That day eventually came around, and for the first time ever since Star Wars, I was getting invested into a sci-fi experience like no other. I've never experienced anything quite like Destiny in the way that Destiny does it. It's definitely one of a kind. It was made by the same people who brought us some of our favourite Halo games. In the beginning there was such a massive community around it, so much love and passion was going into it. It was truly the game that took over as the central focus point for my friend group for around 4+ years. Organising raids, getting really hyped for the release of The Taken King, and playing the raid on day one. It allowed competition, with one of my fondest memories being when I went flawless for the first time. Staying up, grinding through trials all night, just to hope that your slip didn't get one loss on it, was something outstanding and a great experience, especially for those moments. Destiny as a concept and as a game for a long time was genuinely something magical. It hit so many points of interest for me: FPS competition, PvE adventures, the story, big raids, and the socially accepted gambling system of RNG. My mind will always have fond memories of many parts of both the original Destiny and its sequel. However, this fondness definitely started to fade as my mind started to recognise the same cycles appearing over and over again. For those who haven't played Destiny, you may not have played it, but you've probably heard plenty about it when it comes to the issues the community has with the game itself, the way that they do content drops, choices internally, and much more. The first ever time that I dropped playing Destiny was on the release of King's Fall's hard mode. At the time I was a 13-year-old who had a really high-pitched voice. In our team we had 3 guys who were older, but for some reason they continued to play with us. 2 of them were pretty chill. Shout out to HasFox if you're watching this ever. It's been over a decade since you were online on the Xbox, but yeah, you were always one of the cooler ones. One of them, however, kept picking on me in particular out of everyone in the friend group, and then I ended up disconnecting twice from the raid and he just lost it and went off on one. Just for reference, by the way, this guy was like 18 and at the time I was like 13. This led me to just saying enough was enough and I just stopped playing. I did end up briefly playing the game again when Rise of Iron came out, however I stopped until the second game was properly released as I didn't find that DLC particularly interesting. When the second game did come out though, it brought me back to Destiny with a vengeance. I loved it. It was a great time. However, after the first month or so, there was next to no content to do, so I left. This happened a few more times, and it wasn't until Forsaken where I truly started to feel more negative feelings about this game. Forsaken is this game's version of Taken King. It added so much, reshaped the game, and brought back many players. It was perfect until the night just before the release of Black Ops 4. Me and a friend named Josh were doing a raid with a bunch of other guys who are very sweaty players, and one got very angry with me over something that I literally couldn't control because it was a glitch. That was literally all that kept happening, was like my character just kept glitching and it was screwing up the intro to the raid. With this, Josh ended up messaging me in the end and he was just like, hey, do you want to just go play Black Ops 4 as it's going to be releasing in a couple of hours anyway? So we did that. Josh and I went on to become genuinely good friends. I ended up going to New York with him literally less than a year later, and that's just proof that you can make great friendships from games like Destiny, even if you don't enjoy them all the time. This led me to only playing this game every now and again over the next couple of years, but for me, I ended up just realizing that the same cycle was repeating of extreme hype for the thing coming out, the first week of release being amazing, and then there just wasn't enough content to fulfill the long-term vision. At some point in 2020, I made the choice to just never buy anything Destiny related ever again, never played the game properly outside of a quick 20-minute gameplay segment that put me off of playing the game a month ago, so yeah, I ended up just never playing Destiny 2 for around 2 to 3 years. Because I realized that this game was giving me trust issues, massively. It was taking my money, it would then give out what it was taking my money for free in like a year later, and it just never felt like you were actually getting value that you expected based on the information provided by Bungie. What this game ended up teaching me was 3 things. The most important thing was that you can make friends online and via gaming. A lot of the people you meet are pretty chill and cool and actually just want to be friends. It taught me that gaming is just a great way to connect with people. However, it's definitely a roll of the dice. The second lesson was realizing that you can't buy into hype, or at least hype cycles. Either accept it for what it is, or just walk away from what you're playing. Don't let yourself get blinded by something that you've been stung by multiple times, is my advice for most Destiny players out there, but also many other franchises. The final, and quite possibly on par with the first, is the importance of time, and realizing that my time is just far more valuable than putting a full-time job's worth of hours into a game that has zero merit to my life. It adds nothing to my life in like genuine terms, nothing at all. And overall, it's just something that always zapped my energy away instead of giving me anything. One game or 2, and hopefully 3 very soon, that I've always gone back to and loved is Civilization. Specifically 5 and 6, but more so 6. I love these games due to the fact that it just allows me to completely disconnect and enjoy just being an amazing military leader or a great diplomat. What I also love about Civ in particular is that you always get this sense of familiarity, but it's always slightly different every time you play. I started playing with Civ 5 years ago. I'd play it with a friend called Harry and another called George. We normally though would end up playing as a duo and then against AI. Sadly, not many of my friends ended up picking up the 6th installment. I have 320 hours on Civ 6 and almost all of that is entirely by myself versus AI. My most enjoyable experience was recently. I very recently was blessed to get an ROG handheld for the first ever time, and it's great. Honestly, playing on a handheld device, amazing. It's definitely rekindled a lot of my love for many other games, but the first game I chose to play with it was Civ 6. I sat down and watched my favorite comfort show, and then also played Civ for the whole day. In total, I racked up a day's worth of hours over the course of a week, and it was the first time in a long time jumping back in on this game. What Civ 6 allowed me to do in that moment, however, was connect to what I was desiring, which was peace and just to be there, simply exist. The ending of 2024 for me was tough, not because I was doing anything awfully hard, simply that the year had been a big mental game and it was coming to an end. I set myself up to make sure that I could take everything from the 20th all the way through to the 1st of January as it completely off and as a complete reset, which was well needed, well deserved, and also well executed. One of the reasons was because I was playing Civ 6. I allowed my mind to just follow wherever it wished to go, not strategizing on every moment and optimizing every tiny thing to make sure I was being as productive as possible, and it led me back to a game that I love. It's really hard to put into words what exactly this game has done to shape me. It didn't do anything extraordinary. However, what I think it does best, for me anyway, is it allows me to completely decompress, think through thoughts, and it's just something that I truly enjoy for no reason other than enjoyment. There is no external factor to it. It's not like I'm trying to tick things off or make a YouTube video out of it, until right now obviously, but it's just something that I can do without this overarching sense of that I need to be doing it for some ulterior motive. During the same time as playing Destiny and many other games that I've mentioned on this list, franchise that is always on the top of people's minds in gaming released one of its biggest titles. Well, no, the biggest title and the biggest entertainment product ever made, which definitely left its mark on me, which was the Grand Theft Auto franchise, particularly Grand Theft Auto 5. However, I did grow up playing the 4th entry in this franchise and I loved it. I still think the Ballad of Gay Tony is one of the best DLCs in the whole of gaming. The lead up to the 5th installment in this franchise was also something to behold at the time. I didn't get it on launch yet again, but my sister did, and I watched her play through the opening around the first week or so, and I ended up getting my mum to pick it up. She thought it was a racing game. How wrong she was. The first month or so was my favorite time ever playing this title. Not due to the nostalgia of playing the game for the first time, but the fact that the online didn't exist. The servers needed more work so that everyone who was actually playing the game at this point could actually play them, because if you tried playing the online servers when it came out, you'd realize realize just how bad it was. People were stuck having to play the story, which at the time was one of the biggest selling points of this game. Before GTA 5's online, Rockstar's top franchise wasn't known for its shark card live service cash cow that it is currently, but as a mature, genuinely great storyteller and a high quality game made with a high quality world to back it up by high quality developers, which they still do. However, the online has definitely tainted a lot of people's perspective around Rockstar, but overall I think that it's one of those where they can get away with it because they make genuinely amazing products. I love this title for its story. Its early online was also particularly decent. However, what truly stuck with me was its story, but mainly the roleplay servers. Both truly left a dramatic impact on my life, but not necessarily for good reason. The Grand Theft Auto story was one of the most underrated, in my opinion, of the 2010s. It's normally overshadowed massively by its online, and the fact that many people haven't even completed the story should tell you a lot about it. The actual depth to these characters is far more extravagant than people may wish to actually give this game credit for. However, the lesson that this game taught me isn't shaped by its story. It was shaped by the roleplay servers in particular, and this is where we're going to talk about gaming addiction. Addiction is one of the things that I believe is incredibly underestimated and underdiagnosed due to the fact that most gamers consider a lot of the signs of addiction just normal within this space. I was 15 when I first started playing on GTA roleplay servers. When I found out one of my friends was playing it, all of us thought it was a bit sad and a bit weird. However, he convinced me and a couple others to check it out. Then it hit. Roleplay servers are genuinely some of the best gaming experiences that you can get. You get to truly craft the story from beginning to end, and you don't even necessarily get to choose where it ultimately ends. I was taking my GCSEs when I was first getting into GTA roleplay, and in the UK, your GCSEs are kind of a big deal. They're the thing that many people have a massive, love for, or at least fear for, because they think it's going to dramatically change their life if they completely fail or completely do amazingly well. Sure, it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely a pretty big thing, even though I'm definitely downplaying it a little bit. I was playing the game so much with my friends that when we would go to our exams, we'd just be talking about what we were intending to do on our server. That was it. We weren't really interested in revising, we were just playing on this game. So little of our actual time was dedicated towards focusing on something truly important to the real world. Instead, we were spending far too much time putting effort into a fake one, as you could probably tell from my perspective on it. I failed most of my GCSEs. I ended up going into full-time work at the age of 16 in the UK, which isn't normal by any means. A lot of this, in my opinion, is because at the time I was spending way too much time in roleplay servers that were mainly populated by Americans, which meant that we had to stay on till like way too late at night, and yeah, it just built a deeper and deeper addiction that felt even more like we were gaining status and some form of connection. But for me, what it led to was just a deeper depression spiral. This is because my average day when I was working full-time was an 8 to 10 hour shift in my retail job. I'd then go back home, maybe eat something, and then play from around 8 to 9 PM at night until around 3 to 4 and even sometimes 6 AM. My sleep was completely ruined. My life wasn't exactly superb, and this eventually led to a massive issue in appetite and a lot more. However, I did eventually quit, mainly due to issues that I had with the server, the admins, and devs generally, the broader community as well. It wasn't exactly the best thing. All I can say in particular is that they very rarely wanted actual change, even though they kept claiming it would happen. I still have some great memories of this time in my life, only because of the stories and the time that I spent with some of my friends. I do, however, hate the person that I was back then, and yeah, I'm definitely grateful that I'm no longer playing GTA RP. Basically ever, but if I do, it's very, very rarely, and it's far more controlled. What Grand Theft Auto taught me, not necessarily the game itself, but the roleplay spin-off servers, was that I am someone who can pretty easily become addicted to something like it. Someone who truly can find themselves in the deep end of gaming addiction. There are stories that I took away with me, but at the same time, it cost me a lot of my time that I will never get back, but I spent in this fictional world. GTA RP made me someone far more empathetic towards areas of addiction and far more open to seeing a lot of the big flaws in the gaming space, such as addiction itself being masked as a hobby that you enjoy. This though is for another video, which I've been hinting at this video for like 2 years now, and I promise you guys, it is finally actually in the works, and yeah, you'll probably see something related to it over the next 4 to 5 months. Another game that I probably had a little addiction to, but at the time it was completely justified because of the time that we were in, which is Animal Crossing New Horizons. As we all know, this game and Warzone were probably some of the biggest titles that helped many of us get through the first lockdown. I first played Animal Crossing as a franchise when I was a kid on the Wii, and the title in question was City Folk. I loved this game dearly, however, New Horizons for me has to be the best experience of this franchise. It helped me a lot during the first lockdown here in the UK, it brought me closer to many of the people in my life. Some of my greatest memories as well at the time came from just sitting on Discord calls with my friend while we were doing tarantula farming. This franchise had a massive impact on me, as it's one of the only games that have ever truly made me feel calm. It puts you in a state of pure bliss, and the next title in the franchise will probably make the same feelings come around, and I can't wait. What this game truly did to make me who I am today is that it allowed me to be open to experiences that, especially back in the early 2010s or so, wouldn't have been considered, the typical boy experiences, and you'd be looked at weirdly for playing these games. Games like Animal Crossing and The Sims and whatnot weren't necessarily looked at as inherently female domains, but they were definitely pushed people away because you definitely kind of got that category there. However, for me, I believe that this game and this franchise opened me up to just check out any type of game, no matter the pre-existing beliefs around them. However, though, this game truly, what it means to me is that it's just a place of peaceful solitude, somewhere my mind can go to rest, switch off, and just relax. The only game that I've played on this list from when I've become an adult and it had a ginormous impact on me is Red Dead Redemption 2. It's the first game that in a long time I fell in love with. While I love the likes of Animal Crossing New Horizons for its own reasons, this is a different level of admiration. This game is truly art in the form of a game. It shows so much care for detail and just tells a very human story, allowing the true things that make stories amazing, which is emotion, to come through in ways that might not be the most prominent at first, but as you learn and grow with Arthur Morgan, it will open your eyes to a different type of game. Nearing the end of 2020, I'd hit a point with my perfectionism that my entire way of viewing anything and everything was via a way of ROI. I remember distinctly having a conversation in the gym with a friend in between a few sets where we ended up having a mild argument discussing whether or not gaming was a complete waste of time. At the time, I wasn't playing much either. I'd quit gaming a couple months prior to this, and it took another 6 months to maybe 8 to even pick up a controller again. This all came from the feeling that I needed to be more, be better, and to do what was necessary for my progress. This, though, is a flawed mentality. Striving for perfection that is unattainable is exhausting, and only when you start to build a better mindset will you actually be free to be happy. This brings me to Red Dead Redemption 2. I played this game for the first time because I actually wanted to just make a YouTube video out of it. I didn't expect it to change my entire outlook on gaming and storytelling. Even though initially I was playing knowing I wanted to create something after the fact, I found myself playing and experiencing it because I wanted to, not because I needed it for something else. From experiencing the world itself to the characters that live in it, it all pushes me in one direction, which was unraveling my perfectionism. An idea that I've had for a very long time is that you need a good game or a good book at the right time in your life to be this catalyst towards making you change in different ways. It allowed me to start taking in games for the way that they were intended. For some, that might be junk food for the brain, but for others, it is actually life-changing experiences and amazing stories. This game is truly the last game that pushed me into being the person that I am today, and because of that, I'll forever be grateful for its existence and towards Rockstar for making such a product. That person is the one that you're listening to right now. It may not be because of all of these games that it made me who I am today, but each plays a piece in a broader jigsaw that creates who I am. Whether that's a place to roam and feel at home within Skyrim, or a way to feel in awe with something when walking around the world of Red Dead 2. All of these games have helped me at some point or another. They've shaped me in the way that I view the medium, felt in life at the time, and even deepened and created relationships. Gaming is amazing for those reasons alone, and it's why I'll forever be grateful for all of them, even the ones that have caused me issues, as they all made me who I am today. With that all being said though, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did and you want to support the channel directly, then make sure to go check out the Patreon that will be linked down below. But while you're down there, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be amazing. With that all being said though, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.